Be what? Really common or pretty rare?
Pretty rare.
Okay, pretty rare, okay? One of the ways you might see it, okay, it might be kind of the general deconditioned patient at bedside, where, remember, you've only got so much time to work with the patient, and you're trying to get a lot of things done in a short amount of time, and by doing these things, instead of just like, okay, let's practice, straight plane movements of hip flexors and extensors and so on. You're doing it kind of all at once to try to kill a lot of birds with one stone. So you might see some of that at a bedside thing, general, weakness, okay? The potential is also there to try to get certain muscles to work in certain types of synergistic groups, which sometimes is associated with some of the neuro patients, okay, post-stroke. Now, I say that, but then also I leave the most bizarre one for last, okay? That's the D2 diagonal down in the lower extremity, and you'll see why in a second. What you really want to try to be able to do, though, is when you're working through these things, if you can match your body type to the patient's body type, make sure that you're given just as good hand placement and resistance as possible, because people do respond to the tactile sensations they're given, okay? So whether or not it's the quick stretches or the hand placement, whatever it is, they will push against where they feel resistance. So if you're trying to work across the dorsum of the foot, and you've got that foot and you're wrapped across the entire foot, both the dorsum and the plantar surface, what message are you signaling to the patient? Plantar flexion or dorsiflexion if you're grabbing across the entire foot like this? A little bit of both, right? It'd be very hard for them to figure it out. So if you want to get dorsiflexion, go across the dorsum of the foot or the dorsum of the hand. Okay? You want to get the plantar flexion, make sure you're on the plantar surface and not across the dorsal surface. So these are the little subtleties that they'll complain about during like a PNF type course. You have to do exactly right if you're going to get that certification at the end. You just spent $500, you better make sure you get it right. Okay, the pressure's on. So just be aware that that takes place. The last one we have to do is the D2 consideration, and where that one really starts to cause a problem, okay, is going to be this guy right here, okay? What do you think that's going to look like? Extension and adduction. You got it in your handout, but let's see. I can only extend so far by adduction. I come across, I kind of scissors across. And if you look at that, okay, got that, and then flexion and AB, okay, and I figure that part out coming up like that. So if I'm doing something to do, it's kind of like the breaststroke, I have the whip kick, good, swimming exercise, maybe that'll help. But what's odd is this one, the flexion, the extension, adduction. Why might that be the case? Have you ever seen that type of position, that type of motion before? What was that? Okay, sometimes you'll see when someone has suffered a stroke, okay, that you will see that type of position. So you're almost feeding into the type of a synergistic pattern that is produced by a stroke. It's like, well, why would I ever want to have someone perform a task that actually magnifies some of the symptomology of the stroke that prevents someone from walking? It's kind of adduction and scissoring of the legs as you extend the legs. So, not that I'm going to argue one way or the other. This is kind of what, the PNF people talk about. I would tend to think you probably break up some of the pieces of these lower extremity, diagonals and use only individualized parts and trying to do the entire, diagonal sometimes, just for reasons like that. Does that make sense? Okay, so who's our last contestant? Jump up once. Here it is, your last chance. Who hasn't been a helper? Jackie, you can help? There you go.
You made eye contact.
Jackie's going for extra credit. Okay, good for her. But I remember all these things. I remember who laughs at me, and I remember who helps out. So if you lie down supine right here, okay? What happens here with Jackie, she's be my contestant. There's nothing wrong with that sandal. So here was Jackie. She's going to be crisscrossing her legs down to that position there. She's performing that type of what we call the adduction and the extension part of it. I'm going to be, and she's in plantar flexion as well, I'm going to be providing resistance out here at the dorsum of the foot. I'm also going to be in this position out here, lateral, anterior portion of the thigh. She's going to try to bring her foot up here, and it's really kind of an odd thing. It's like if you really were doing like your swim at all? Okay, well, she doesn't swim, but if you do like the breaststroke with the whip kick, you're kind of going into that position here of being out to that position. Okay? So, using all those guys there, it works really nicely here. Sometimes you have a really good cramp with the tensor fasciae lata as you do this, so just in case, let me know. So here we go. I'm going to take her from this position here. You're going to come up, jack like this, up to this position here and dorsiflex. Okay? And then when I come back down, what do I have her do? I'll come back over here, and what do I do in this case? I'm going to hold right here. It's like this, kind of bring that leg over. And point the toes, and immediately rotate. That position. Come back over here, and here we go. Come on out. And again, I'm just dorsiflex. There you go. I'm using anatomical words. I'd use much different words with the real patient. And come back down. And she's going into that type of position there, okay? So again, I'm just standing in the plane, kind of being towed along during the movement itself. Don't necessarily use the lower extremity diagonals, all that much. Much less than the upper extremities, but then again too, the idea is can you break it apart and use what's appropriate for the patient. So any questions on that? Just seeing the basics of the D2. Are we good with that? Working in the system? Okay. Oh, yes, Heather.
More resisting or you just happen to?
In which part? The flexion abduction part?
Yeah, I don't know. I just
Okay, for flexion abduction, if I'm out here on the anterior lateral side, what I get here is I can use distal force here at the femur to kind of give a force in toward midline, which gives the cue to get the abductors going. I'm also giving a force here to go ahead and give force back down into extension, which gets the flexors going. Okay. When I come back up like this, I'm actually just kind of sneaking around here, and I'm kind of going in the area of the popliteal fossa, in and around the semitendinosus and semimembranosus, tendons. And this way, I'm going to go ahead and, Jackie's just going to go ahead and pull me down into that position here. Pull. Oh, come on. You can do it. You can do it. Extend it. Get all the way over there. That's it. And she'll get the idea. A little bit of the dance again. Once you kind of know what the start and the end positions are, people have a better chance at moving through things. Okay? Questions, comments, things to add. Again, these are the basic diagonals. They only take up how many pages of the book? The book is about 300 pages. And they cover how many pages across there? Maybe 18 pages? Yeah, pretty simple stuff. But, again, PNF goes on and on and on forever. Faculty, anything to add? Anything to say? Okay. Let's go ahead, run through that last